Welcome to another Retainer Designer live stream. We do this every Friday, and I'm doing a little something different with my cameras. This is a webcam. Not too pleased with it. Don't like the way it looks, but I do have my other cameras set up here, so it looks like we are ready to go. Sawyer, I forgot to set up the duck cam. Yeah, so we're going to say that's Sawyer's fault. He may not like me saying that, but anyway, today we're doing a E-arch. So I don't know if y'all have seen those before, but oh, hello, we got some comments. Hello, Luciano. Good afternoon. Yes, and Amy, good to see you here too. I like my regulars that come aboard and watch the live stream. So hopefully this camera setup's going to work. The camera switcher I use, they've kind of discontinued, so I'm trying something new to make sure that if I don't get updates for that anymore, I can survive with just a couple cameras. So, like I said, today, let's get started. Today we're doing the E-arch, and we're doing a combination of, Sawyer's going to come tell me something.
Mommy's the key.
They're in my pocket. There you go. All right. Wife is headed to pick up the other kids. My oldest Sawyer is kind of monitoring the stream from the other room, and my wife needed the keys, and I had them in my pocket. So that's what's great about having a lab. My little lab out in the country is we do have to drive to go in to the thing. Hello, Marcia Lago. Oh, money. No, that's a flag. I can't tell what that is. What? Tell me what flag that is. That's pretty cool. And where you're from. So let's get started. So as you know from the thumbnail, we're doing an E-arch, and I came across two E-arches. They're for brothers, and I'm missing the other model. So what I did is I went ahead and made one so y'all could see it, a finished product. And I'll switch over to, let's do this. There? Yeah. So this is the finished product. It's a very simple design. Again, I got two brothers. Looks like one's older than the other, possibly. And they are going to be, ooh, I need a little bit more light on that, don't I? Let's see if I can brighten this a bit. And let me show you how this works. Ooh, see, it's mainly in three parts. We got two sides, and we have the spring in the middle. I don't even know if you can see that spring. Again, let me see if I can brighten this a bit. There we go. And we have one side that has oh, why is that so? I have done the wrong setting on here, guys. Bear with me. See, I'm doing the camera's different, so they are doing a little something funky on me. But as you can see, this is two separate pieces. There is a tube here that I have laser welded to an 040 wire, and this is an 036 wire which fits inside this tube. Now this tube I believe is an 040 internal diameter tube, so that makes the 036 wire, which is smaller than 040, slide in and out pretty easily. The third part is the open coil spring, and this is the main part that will help with expansion. And so we slide that on, and then this slides onto here. And this design I've been doing since I've been doing the laser welding, and it allows a little bit of extra expansion because you can let's see if I can get a pointer here. You can see that it passes all the way through, that one wire passes all the way through. And so that allows even more. So usually you take the tube, another way of doing this. Oh, thank you. Sorry, you brought me a pointer. So as you can see, there's an opening here. And an opening here. And so this will pass all the way through that opening. So before you can take and I kind of have an example here. So this is a tube, and I have bent it like this. Now this is the opposite side, but you can see where I've bent it, and you can actually use the tube and actually solder it to the band. Let me switch models here. And you can actually use the whole tube. So you would start here, and I usually go, middle of the. Thank you. Yep. You can go the middle of the lateral, and then I would make a mark here, and you can actually slowly bend this, which actually pinches it, and so the wire can only go about that far. So this way, with the tube being pulse arc welded to and I use the wire to solder the other side can go all the way through. That's what I'm trying to say, which gives you more room. Otherwise, the pinch would be about right here at the end of this, and if I would only be able to go about that far. So this way I can go further. It expands better.
Comments like put a white paper down so I found a towel.
Okay. Oh, Amy. Okay. Amy, Brazil. Is that the Brazil flag? Is that for Marcia? Hello, Diana. Nice to see you again. Could you try putting a white down to see if that helps with the darkness? Let's see. Hello, darkness, my old friend. You're laughing at me. I hear you. I think it's just my setting. Let me try a different setting real quick. Let me move a different camera. I'm going to try a different menu. Let's go with white balance. Auto white balance. That's underwater auto white balance. No, cloudy, incandescent, cloud. No, shade. No. Let's do white balance there. I think I need to do, give me a second. So I use this camera for church also. So the settings for that are definitely, I do not know if that made any difference. Man, this is really, I like it, but I just do not have enough. Yeah, whatever I'm doing is not, okay, hold on guys. Y'all are seeing the back end of this. I have done something to my camera here. No, this is not working. Try exposure. Aha. Let's try that one. Sawyer had the trick. I had my exposure turned down. All right, so I'm just going to do a recap. So most E-arches are made up of 3 components. You got a right and left side. One of the sides has a tube. Sometimes the right side the whole right side can be a tube. I used to make them like that at another lab. And it's just a very simple thing where I take a tube like so, and I would put it here, I'd put a bend here, and then I would just run it back and solder it there, which is real simple. But since I've got my pulse arc welder, my PUK D3 pulse arc welder, I actually just laser weld a little piece of a tube on an 040 wire, and I pass my other 036 wire in there. And so I like that I can go all the way to the edge. No, let me put this on the correct model. So I can go all the way to the edge if I want. Now I did move this whole thing back because I think this band was off a little bit. That's a different story for another day. And then I put a tiny piece of solder on this one. So this is my 036 wire side, and I put a solder on there as like a stop. Oh, and so let me put my wire on there, my open coil wire, and then slide that onto here. And then what they do is, now if they usually take ligature wire and they'll tie it off, or I can put like a little rubber band on there that holds everything close. They cement it in, cut the rubber band, and then over time this thing just slowly expands apart, which is pretty cool. So that's what we're going to make. So let's get started with that. Should I keep the white? We'll try black. Let me back up a bit. I think my ISO is overdone now. Oh, let's do this. Let's drop the ISO. So I'm learning about cameras as I go. Now this one does have cleats on here. So what I like to do to prep for these is I'm going to bend these cleats outwards like this. Like this. Like that. And that just helps me to grind them off. And I have a heatless wheel. I'm going to hold my breath. Usually I do this under a suction unit, but just so I can have it in the camera, I'm going to just do it right here at my desk. And this will give me a nice clean area to solder. So this is a combination using the solder and the laser welder. I keep calling it. If I say laser welder, I actually mean a pulse arc welder. Now, first thing I'm going to do is let's make that right side. Let's make that right side. I got to find my little piece of tube that I was using before. It's on my desk somewhere. I have shifted some stuff around. Look, I even got a little piece of spring here left over. I do have this tube, but I don't like it so much. I have one that has thicker walls. So talk amongst yourselves while I look for this. Why can I not find that? Because sometimes it looks like a piece of wire. Maybe I've put it back. So here's the open coil if y'all want to read that. This is where I order it from. Variable force open coil tie spring, and 15 inches long. I believe the wire is 0.012, and the internal diameter of it is 0.45. So you can fit this on wires that are 0.45 or less. Oh, here it is. It was hiding under a plier. So I use little pieces of tube all the time. So I'm actually going to use my heatless wheel. I'm going to take some 036 wire And I got my little measuring device. Where's that thing at? Here we go. That is 032. That is not 036. Where's my 036? This is nothing I can use. There's 036. All right. So I'm going to round off this end here just to make sure it doesn't have any snags or anything. Sometimes when you clip it, it creates a little spurs on either end. So as you can see, it slides in there nicely. You don't want any catches. So then now I'm going to take this and let's measure out how much of this we want to use. Again, so I don't put it all the way to the distal of this tube because remember the 036 wire is going to come around this corner here. So I need to leave a little corner for my spring part to live, and it needs to be pretty obtuse, not a sharp bend is what I'm trying to say, so that whenever this is closed down all the way, it can bend around it can coil around this corner. So that'll give me a little bit of space. And if I draw this out using the pencil Sawyer gave me, now this tooth right here is going to be my limiting factor. I'm going to have to go straight from this tooth, and then I'm going to come back to there. There is going to be my tube, and I'm going to end the tube about middle or mesial, depending on how crowded it is. I'm going to go mesial of this lower right tube, and then my 036 wire will come and connect into there. And so then I'll probably put a little solder joint right about here, and that'll give me enough open coil spring from here to here to give enough force to expand this lower. I got an eyelash in there. And so this is going to go here. So I'm going to hold this up here. Where's my marker? And I'm going to mark it about there. Again, I want my 036 wire to be able to slide past it if I need to. So that'll give even extra length. You know, look, if I expand from here, look how far that will expand. As opposed to here, you only get this much expansion. But if I can go past that and leave it in the open air, that's going to be the best. It gives me longer expansion. So I'm going to change to a cutting wheel. Now these things are dangerous, kids. Be careful with them, but they give me the smoothest cut. And I'm going to just support my hands here. And hopefully I don't cut off a finger live on live video. And it falls into my lap. All right, so I keep this in a little spot in my wire tower over here. And I'm going to use probably this thing. And I'm just going to round off those edges a bit, just to make it smooth. You know, I don't want it to, injure the tongue or anything. And so this side I like to use a thicker wire because I can. And so I'm going to use a 040 wire. Now let me round this off. This is going to be my end, and just taper it a little bit. Let me switch to my PUK cam. But what I'm going to show you, if the PUK cam doesn't show up, I'm going to hold these two side by side like this, and I'm going to laser weld it. I'm saying it. Pulse arc weld it. And then that way, I'll get a nice bead on there, and I'll kind of explain it while I'm going. Let's see if I can. Yep, here we go. I'm going to use a brand new sharpened electrode tip. put it in here, put my cap back on, put it back here, turn my hat backwards as I get serious. And then I can show you all the settings afterwards. I already got this camera set up, but it is, power is 26% and time is 3 milliseconds. And I have it on stainless steel setting. I'm going to take my ground wire, I'm going to attach it back here where it's kind of out of my way. And I just stabbed myself with that electrode. That's nice. Hopefully this doesn't blind y'all too bad. So I'm just putting these flush, the tube and the 040 wire, and I'm just holding them flush, and I'm going to tack. There we go. Now I'm going to hold this up to the camera the best that I can. I don't know if it's going to focus or not. I can get it in the other camera. But I'm not going to run a bead all the way down, just stacking all the way down. So I'm going to actually go all the way, one after another. I'm going to space them and come maybe in the middle, all right, and then come at the end, all right, and then I'll flip it over, and then I'm going to do it again, middle, because remember this tube has a pretty thin wall, so you don't want to distort it by just welding. Once you weld it, it'll start curling into the weld, so you have to be careful that you spread out your weld a little bit, or else you'll make this beautiful weld, just perfectly in a line going straight down. Stacking dimes, I guess, is the professionals say. And it will cause the tube to shrink up, and then your 036 wire doesn't fit, and then you got to redo this whole thing. So I'm just flipping it over. I'm putting a weld in between other two welds. Okay, it's not catching. Here we go. Sometimes if I don't do it at the right angle. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the tip out to a nice sharp tip, which is the other side. So the other end of the electrode is also sharpened. Oh, come on. And then I'll put it in my little measuring device here. Make sure it's the right length. Put it back together. And then I'm going to go in and fill it in solid. The worst thing that can happen is this tube fall off in the mouth. So I want to make sure. And of course there is pressure on it. So again, that's why we're using 040 wire. Again, since I spread this out, it's not going to be the most beautiful weld, but it'll get the job done. Because if y'all have done welding where you stack the welds on top of each other, like just keep going down in a straight line, oh, it's a beautiful weld. It'll make you happy. So now I'm just going in and filling in any gaps. Again, you don't want to concentrate too much heat in one spot. This is creating a plasma, so it's superheating these metals together, and then they combine when they cool. There we go. Now be careful around the opening of the tube also. There There we go. Because you could melt the tube into itself. Again, I know there's a lot of work to that, but it is. Let's switch your camera. Let's see if I can get this camera to zoom in on this. This high-dollar camera. So hopefully you can see my little welds in there. Again, it's got a little burn spots on it. I got a little too hot. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Let's go crazy with this zoom. There we go. So then those are my welds. Yeah, there we go. All right. So now the moment of truth, we got to make sure that a 036 wire, again I'm measuring just to make sure, yeah, 036 wire will fit in there. So I'll just take the 036 wire and I'll pass it into the tube, and there we go. We have a functioning, sleeve and piston, pretty much. Again, I should just kept that zoom in. Let's go. Put my hand there so I can zoom in on that. So then there we go. All right, so next stage, let's bend this. Let's build this. Again, now you can move this, pretty much you can put it on the inside like that. Now it's going to inhibit? It's going to inhibit your 036 wire, because remember we're going to bend this in a 90 degree. So depending on where you put this, the bend will be how far this can go. So usually I like to do it this way, but since I'm pretty close to that, I may go on top. No, I think I'll go like this. We'll do it like the other one, so they're not too different. So you can see now how long that expansion can go, because once it gets full expansion, this will pop out from each other. So the longer of a piston you can put in there, the better. So I'm going to hold this in place. I'm going to mark where I want to make my bend, and we're going to work this way toward the back. I hope if I put my model holder in here. Now I have to be careful I don't. Well, that fits good. This cricket tooth. Oh, there goes Pete. Pete's trying to get in on the live stream again. Now I'm going to keep bending this. I do want this exactly perpendicular. So if I draw a midline down here, through the midline, exactly between the two things, I want this to be a perfect perpendicular to it. I don't want it to be at an angle this way or this way. I got to make sure it's level this way also, so it doesn't go up or down this way. It needs to be perfectly level with the occlusion and perpendicular to the midline. So I'm going to so I'm pretty level here. I'm going to mark it right here and bend it toward the band. I'm going to do a little step bend, if I can find my 3-prong. In, out, and try to get that to hit flat. Now you can, almost said laser weld again, pulse arc weld this to the band. That's an option for you, or you can just do classic solder, because it is on a stone model. That's what makes this. If this was a 3D printed model, we would definitely have to weld onto the bands. You couldn't solder, and then solder later. So I'm just going to cut that. So let's grab the 036 wire, which is right here. I'm going to double check. Yep, make sure it is correct. Yep. Slide it in to the tube. I'm going to make sure, sorry if my hand's getting in the way, but I need to make sure that that is as far as I want it to go. So pretty much almost always this happens. This wire end of 036 is parallel with this bend that's going posteriorly. Sometimes you need 3 hands. So this is where I need to make a mark here. And it needs to be more of a gradual bend. So I'm going to take my bird beaks here. I'm going to choke down to the bigger diameter part of the pliers. So I don't want a sharp 90. I want that to be able to pass through. This is almost sharp here, but I think we're still good. And then I'm going to pass this here. This gets to the tricky part, and there's probably better ways of doing this, but this is the part that I tend to, how do I do this? Now, what makes it tricky is now this thing spins on each other, right? So how do you hold this in place and bend it, while you're trying to hold it in place? So I would only advise doing this if you have a steamer where you can steam out the wax, but I'm going to put a little drop of wax right here where those two come together, and that will help these from rotating so bad on each other. So I'm going to let that cool just a bit. And of course, this is a small mouth. Most of these that you make this appliance for will be a small mouth, for sure. Now, one thing you need to do, and I see I'm touching this tooth right here, is create enough room for the spring to go on here. So I'm going to take this little extra piece of spring and just float it in place while I bend the rest of this. And that way, oh, my little wax broke off holding the pieces together. So that way you have enough room. See how this can slide? Now if this was totally jammed up against the tooth, it wouldn't slide very well. Again, there's probably a lot better ways of doing this. One way is I can tack weld, sticky wax tack, something this side of the E-arch. I'm trying to get it in the right place. I might have to bend this a bit. I obviously did not make it. Okay, that slides on there. That's almost there. Just a little low here. On it right in the middle there. So I think I'm there. I just got to bend this up. Somewhere I did something wrong. So I just need to put a little 3-prong there. Bend that upwards. So I'll just break this little sticky wax and bend it in a upward manner. I bet it was because I was bending this without that 036 in place. I'm going to clean up this sticky wax here. Like I said, this is the tricky part. And let's bend it up a little more. Curve upwards. There we go. If that's a little long, that's fine. I'm just going to leave it. I'm not gonna, well, heck, I can cut it. It's where I want it. Cut this. And I'm going to go ahead and take my wheel and prep this, taper it down. This just saves you a little time when you're soldering, or when you're actually tapering the solder after you've already soldered. Okay, I think we are there. Let's use a little pink wax this time in this little, let's put it over here. That's actually a mixture of pink wax and sticky wax. And I'm going to put this on here. Again, I'm going to sticky wax one side. The other side will rotate, but since it's sticky wax there a little bit, it's not going to be as floppy around as it was before. So we are very close. I like this space that's between this tooth in here. I just need to kind of curve it back around. So about right here, I need to put a real light bend. And I'm just going to use my 3 prongs and just do a little bend toward that band. This will work out perfect. All right. So this space I'm not going to worry about. Because about right here, I'm going to put a little solder stop whenever I'm doing the soldering, so that it will actually stop the wire. So I'm going to put my wax up here and put another piece of wax here. Another drop of wax there. So that's touching. And push it, so make sure it's touching. And then that's touching. Because that's the great thing about this is it does expand. So as you need to expand, it will. So let's get this thing prepped. I'm going to just run a steamer over this little solder joint and make it clean. These solder joints here, let me back up just a bit. Oop, nope, back up. There we go. I'm going to just run a steamer over these solder joints real quick, just to make sure it's a nice, clean area for soldering. Can't do it too much because my the wax will melt. So let me get my soldering stuff over here, and we'll just solder under the camera under here. There we go. I'm just double checking, make sure nothing moved when I did that. I see a little bit of crud on this right here. Not sure what that is. That might just be a bend. Oh no. Oh good. That would have been nasty in the solder joint. Well, one time not too long ago, I got a big air bubble in my solder joint, and I had not had one of those in a long time. Had to go back and refill it. That'll make for a good video too, how to repair, big bubbles to me mean it was a dirty solder joint. Small bubbles means you overheated it. You got it too hot. Now, you're probably saying, hey, Cade, be careful, because when you solder now, your wax is going to melt and your whole thing's going to move on you while you're soldering. But fret not. I have my trusty heat shield. So I'm just going to heat shield this whole thing. Make sure heat, well, that wax is pretty close to the solder joint, so hopefully that one doesn't get into the solder joint. So protect that whole thing with heat shield. Make sure you get the heat shield up under the wire too, because anywhere a flame can get to it, it'll melt that wax. But as long as it's completely sealed by that heat shield, you should be good. I'll grab my flame. Can y'all see that? Oh, you can kind of see it. So I've talked about this before. I like to heat these teeth inside the band. You see in the previous model, the teeth are completely gone. Yeah, you destroy the model. If you don't want to, you may want to look into making a master model or a working model, a master model. And that's where you duplicate it and transfer the bands over, or you make a master model that you can send it back to the doctor on a nice clean model. So I'm pretty much just making this super hot red. That's going to make removing this from the model good. Make sure that settles. Come on, settle up against the band. And that's another reason is that I like to heat the band from the inside so the solder jumps to the band a lot easier. So I'm going to switch this to the other side. Now switch hands. That's one thing I've learned to do is solder using opposite hands. And the reason is so I can always have that flame pointing out the back. If I have it pointing toward the front, you know, that gives even more chance for that flame to get to those waxed areas. Now, one thing you can totally secure your stuff, and I've done a video on this, is using Zap-It or cyanoacrylate. So pretty much like a dental super glue. You can super glue the wires to the model, and that way you don't have to worry about the wax melting, because that cyanoacrylate will not melt on you. It may fume you out, but it won't melt. Another option is using stone. There we go. So I really look for that flux to turn clear, and I might be getting this a tad hot, but there we go. So let me cool this down, and I'll come right back and take this off, and we can look. I'll show you how I can remove this from the model easy now. This is going to be a little messy, but hopefully y'all will understand. Let me move my soldering brick here. And I'll take a knife, and this is a Buffalo Dental 7R knife. And notice if I push into this model right here, where I didn't flame it, it doesn't push in. But where I do heat it, if I push in, you see the knife sinks in. So it makes the stone nice and soft, so you can just slide your knife up underneath it. Again, you're trying to save the framework and not the model. But if you do it right, you got a nice ring where the model was, so you can always set it back. And then of course, cleaning out the inside of the band works out great. And this will sit right back in here. So there you go. That is the soldered version of that. I'm not going to high shining these. Use your usual method for high shining these. And you just can pull it apart, work on them individually one at a time. Oh, I didn't put my little solder bead on there. Let me do that real quick. So I'm going to mark it with, see how I can just set it right back where it was using that ring, that impression of the band. I can just set it right back where it was. I'm going to mark this with just a little bit of flux. Right here on the model, I'm just going to put a little bit of flux right where I want a little solder bead to go. You don't need much solder. I am going to heat shield around this just to hold it down. You could also just take this off, solder it on that soldering table that I have. I'll take my little handheld torch. I'm going to turn the flame down just a bit. Well, not all the way off, Cade. If I had a hydroflux welder or torch, oh man, I miss my hydroflux welder. Some of my old RPE. Oh, here we go. Just a little bead. Come on. Come on, little bead. You can do it. There we go. So again, that's what I just soldered. That's going to be your stop for your spring to not go all the way. So let me clean this off and I'll be right back. If you do the spring all the way, it's not going to be not going to be a game changer or anything. Just you don't have to use as much open coil and less chance of it running all the way back to here. To me, it just provides a little bit more control for the doctor. So let me cut. So what I will usually do is cut these, trim these and high shine them. And then I'll take my open coil here. Run the open coil all the way to that solder stop. And then you can either cut it right at the end or, just a few extra. And then the doctor can always cut off more or less depending on how much power he or she wants to give this. And then I'll just take my finger, pull it back, and slide that on. And put it on here. Whew. Again, you may want to put a rubber band around these two pieces so that that's a lot of pressure on there. You can see how much it's closed the open coil down. So there's a lot of pressure. So the doctor can actually remove a few coils to lessen the pressure, but I'm giving them everything that'll fit, just in case he needs all that pressure all at once. So it just gives, it's up to the doctor to. It's real easy for them to just clip off excess ones. And so there we have it. We have an E-arch. You can see how simple that is to make. Oh, that just shot off in my hand. We'll leave that there. So here's the finished high-shined product. Again, these are two brothers, and they're getting their E-arches the same day next week. And that is the finished product. So hopefully that helped. And let me know if y'all have any questions down below. I appreciate y'all tuning in and helping me figure out my camera settings, which is what you tuned in for. But anyway, hope that helped. Real simple E-arch to real simple to do, and you can do it in-house with you can do that with just solder too. Soldering that tube to I have some tricks on that. I think I do have a video on it. And if somebody wants to see a video of that, put it in the comments below of me soldering a tube onto the wire. There's a few tricks, and one is just sticking pencil lead in there and breaking it off so that solder doesn't travel inside your tube, because then it just ruins your tube. But yeah, Amy, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in. I will see y'all next time. Let me get my outro set up, and until next time, happy bending.